3,500 years ago, a single seafaring civilization tied the whole Aegean together, its ships and its trade reaching coast after coast across the ancient world. Centered on the island of Crete, the civilization we now call the Minoans built a world that still astonishes the people who uncover it. Sprawling palaces with water and drainage systems far ahead of their age. Trade routes that touched coast after coast of the eastern Mediterranean. A wealth and an artistry that set them apart from everything around them. For generations, they were one of the great powers of the Bronze Age world. And then, the island at the crossroads of that world tore itself open in one of the largest volcanic eruptions in the human record. A column of ash punched into the sky. The sea reared up into a wall and swept across the Aegean. And the brilliant sea people who had ruled these waters for centuries began to slide, quietly, out of history. But here is what makes it one of the strangest catastrophes ever uncovered. An eruption this enormous should have wiped them out where they stood. It didn't. The civilization it struck would go on living for years after the mountain fell silent, and only then begin to disappear. So how do you survive the end of your world and vanish anyway? And what does it actually take to erase a civilization from the face of the earth? To answer that, we have to go back to the island as it was before the eruption remade it. They built one of their great ports on the island the world would one day call Thera. We know it now as Akrotiri, and it was no village. It had grown over centuries into a flourishing town of fine homes and frescoed walls, a jewel set at the crossroads of the sea. Because that was the secret of this entire civilization. It was not a place. It was a network. Every island, every harbor, stitched to the next by trade routes, with the great centers of Crete at the heart of it, and ships moving between them like blood through a body. Their genius was connection, and connection in the end was exactly how they could be killed. But beneath that round, beautiful island, something was stirring, and it had been holding its breath for a very long time. Then the mountain opened. It began with a single towering column. Pumice and ash blasted more than 20 kilometers into the sky, then falling back as a rain of stone that buried Akrotiri whole. But that was only the first of 4 waves, and each one came hotter than the last. We know this because the eruption left its own thermometer behind. The ash baked the wood inside the city's walls, and that scorching can still be read today. The first surge arrived at a few hundred degrees. By the final phase, the deposits came in at around 500, a rising, relentless heat sealing the town deeper with every pulse. And then the sea got involved. Seawater found its way into the molten heart of the volcano, and the eruption stopped being an explosion and became an annihilation. The island's center collapsed inward, the ground folding down into a vast pit at the heart of the island. By any measure we have, what happened on Thera that season ranks among the largest eruptions in the human record. Its sheer volume, by some estimates, rivaling the greatest in recorded history. And the destruction did not stay on the island. As the eruption's burning flows poured into the sea, the water was hurled outward in great waves, and across the water on Crete, the ground still holds the proof. A chaotic layer of debris dragged inland by surging water, threaded through with the volcano's own ash. Even the sky was poisoned. The mountain breathed out an enormous load of corrosive gas, the kind that eats at the ozone far above us, enough by some models to thin that shield over the northern latitudes of the world for years. An island had been unmade, and its death was being felt across continents. So this should be the end of the story. One of the great sea powers of the Bronze Age, struck by the largest eruption in memory. a civilization wiped out in an afternoon. Except that is not what happened, because on Crete, the true heart of the Minoan world, the palaces did not fall. Not that year. The city stood. The trade kept moving. In the years right after the eruption, life simply went on. By every visible measure, the Minoans had survived their own apocalypse. Which leaves a darker, stranger question. If the largest eruption in human memory did not destroy them, then what did? The answer, one influential reconstruction argues, was hiding in the very thing that had made them great. Their power was a web, and a web has a logic of its own. Akrotiri was not just a city, it was a node, one of the great way stations where the routes of the whole Aegean came together. And when you tear a node like that out of a network, at first, almost nothing happens. The other routes absorb the loss. Life goes on. That is exactly what fooled everyone, then and now. But the cost of every voyage that once passed through the dead island begins slowly to climb. Route by route, the journeys that no longer make sense are abandoned. The web thins. Connection by connection, the thing that bound the whole civilization together, quietly comes apart, until a network built to carry prosperity is carrying its absence instead, and the brilliant maritime world they had built drifts toward an unraveling that no single wave could ever have caused. That is where the people went, not in a single day, and not in the ash, but scattered, diminished, absorbed, the way a civilization always goes when its lifelines are cut, until the name that had ruled the sea for centuries simply stopped meaning anything at all. The eruption didn't kill them in a day. It pulled one thread and waited. And the strangest part is that we still cannot say for certain when any of it happened. The same disaster we can read in such extraordinary detail, the 4 hot phases, the wave, the poisoned sky, refuses to give up its date. One line of evidence, written in the growth rings of an olive tree the eruption buried alive, points to a moment late in the 17th century before our era, roughly 1627 to 1600, a full century earlier than the date long handed down through the records of Egypt. Other readings push the other way, toward the 16th century. And for a while it looked like the ice itself might settle it, a thin band of volcanic ash, frozen deep in a Greenland core, seemed to carry Thera's signature and a precise year. But when the chemistry was finally checked, the glass didn't match. That ash had come from a different volcano entirely, on the far side of the world, and the date came loose again. So it stands. One of the largest catastrophes in human history, suffered by one of its most remarkable civilizations, at a moment in time we still cannot agree on. We know how the island died. We know how the network it anchored slowly strangled. We just don't know for certain what year the sea went quiet.